Okay, we're up to um, Daf Kuf Beis on the days, the Mishnah on the bottom of the page, and we're saying chilukim between the Mikdash and the Medina. So we know that a person is not able to go ahead and make a kesher on Shabbos. Now let me make a knot on Shabbos. There's machlokas whether you can make a slip knot on Shabbos between Rabbi Yehuda says you can't and the Chacham says you could. In addition, one's not being metaken klishir. You can't go ahead and fix an instrument on Shabbos. This all comes into play in the next sugya. Says the Mishnah, Koishra Nima b'mikdash. You're able, if on Shabbos it goes ahead in the mikdash and it breaks, the string breaks on your instrument, on your stringed instrument, Koishra, you're able to go ahead and tie it. Avaloi b'Medina, but you cannot do this in the Medina. It seems to be it's a shvus in the mikdash you'll be able to do, but in Medina you would not be able to go ahead and do it. L'chayra, kshira is more than a shvus. Kshira seems to be what? A deraisa dikadin, right? Kshira would appear to be a deraisa dikadin. So, but you're permitted to do it in the mikdash. Let's see, Rashi, Koishra Nima, Nimas Kina shall shir halavim lekarbin and nifskar b'Shabbos. V'gmar mefarish time and iksav machshrei mitzvah. A hechsher mitzvah that you couldn't possibly do the day before. The hayoim nifsaka don't broke today. Doches a Shabbos. Yafagav the keshav malachu. The Shabbos, guys. This is a bigger chiddush, right? Because over here it's not a shvus; it's in the raisa. So you must hold that hechsher mitzvah is doicha Shabbos that you couldn't do yesterday. However, then betchila, if you're coming to go ahead and initially string it, it was not stringed ever, then you were able to put it together. Before Shabbos, you could have and you didn't, then it would be awesome. Uremini oles you astira. Nimes kinar shenifsaka lahoya kaishrin ella einva. If you have a stringed instrument that's nifsak, that it ripped, and you cannot go ahead and tie it, ella einva, you can only make a slip knot. Our Mishnah seems to allow both. Here it seems no, you cannot make a slip knot. So like kasha, to answer this stira, the brisa that says you can make a slip knot is Rabbanon. That's according to the Rabbanon, who says a slip knot is not a isser at all. V'ha Rabbi Eliezer, and our Mishnah that says you can tie and makes no difference between tying and it doesn't mean once you're over an isser, you have machshirin, you have a heta. So go ahead and tie, it's not a problem. Fred the Gemara, if you're telling me that our Mishnah, let's tie only b'di'eved after it breaks, excuse me, I'm just jumping ahead of myself. You can go ahead and tie it. Only einva, but not tying, because tying is what is the rice to get in. Fred Gemara, Rabbi Eliezer says the following. He says that in the Pekah of Mila, you could even go ahead, make a fire to make the charcoal to go ahead and make knives on Shabbos. You could do all of those things, right? So why would only be b'di'eved if it does break on Shabbos? They'll allow the heter to go ahead and tie it. Lechatchila, you should be able to tie it even without it breaking on Shabbos. You should be able to go ahead and tie it even lechatchila. So that's a kasha on the Mishnah because the Mishnah is only mashma b'di'eved. So therefore, Elo Lashon Charata, our Mishnah must not be Rebbe Eliezer, Ela ha Rebbe Yehuda v'ha Rabbanan. Well, our Mishnah is according to Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says that an aniva is the same as the kesher. So therefore, koishrin, it doesn't make a difference whether you make a regular knot or a slip knot. In both cases, you're being over an issa deraisa. And the brisa that says no, take the lesser way out, which is aniva because it's not a kesher, that's the rabbanon. So that would apparently be a very, very good teretz, right? The Mishnah is according to Rabbi Yehuda. And the brisa that allows an aniva is according to the Chacham. Now, like Rabbi Yehuda in our Mishnah, obviously you must be going according to Rabbi Eliezer, because I'm permitting an issa deraisa. I'm permitting you to tie, whether it's a slip knot or a regular knot. You're being over on a kesher shel kayama, which is an issa deraisa. So, question. You're back to the same question. The reason why we said the Mishnah is not according to Rabbi Eliezer is because Rabbi Eliezer allows you a feel with chatchila to go ahead and make the knot. Our Mishnah is mashma only b'di'eved. Now you're telling me it's Rabbi Yehuda, who makes no chilik between knot and slip knot, but nonetheless you still have to come on to Rabbi Eliezer, or else why would you matter the heta deraisa, which is going to return us to the same question in the first place. Elahad says Rabbi Yehuda alibid the man amid aleph. He alibid Rabbi Eliezer. If he says according to Rabbi Eliezer kamar, I feel the chatchila nami. Afil lechatchila. You should be able to do it. So why only in case of b'di'evet? Eloi kasha, it's not a problem. The brisa is according to Reb Shimon, who we're going to meet in a second. Rabbanon, and the Mishnah is the Rabbanon. Basically, guys, we can go ahead and say there's three levels. There is machshiri mitzvah on nevadoicha, whether you could have done it before Shabbos or whether you could have done it on Shabbos, it's nevadoicha. To the other extreme, even if you could have done it erev Shabbos, you can still do it on Shabbos. And there's a middle shita. Mechshir mitzvahs doicha only when the occasion arises on Shabbos. But b'di eved, you can't do it. You can't do it before Shabbos. So very geschmack. A brisa that says to go ahead and do an aniva and not what and not tie. That's according to Rav Shimon. And our Mishnah is the Rabbanan, the Tanya. Ben Levi shenifska loy nimo bikina, or a Ben Levi that his instrument broke. Koishra, you can go ahead and tie it. That's the sheet of the Chachamim. Rav Shimon says no. He doesn't say tie. He says oinva. He says you go ahead and make an aniva. So our Mishnah is the Rabbanan. Why the Rabbanan hold? They hold that machshiri mitzvahs is doicha, but only machshiri mitzvah that is occurred on Shabbos, not before Shabbos. And Rabbi Shimon says is also mutter, but Rabbi Shimon says, however, even though it's mutter, it's only mutter al yedei aniva, and not. A third shita, Rabbi Shimon Elazar Omer, af hi eina mishmas as a kol. If you can go ahead, if you're going to go ahead and make a knot, if you can go ahead and make a slip knot, it's not going to sound well. Can you imagine, take a guitar string and go ahead and tie it in the middle? It's not going to work. Picture a guitar, one end over here, one end over here. But those days they had little pegs, like the guitar has on the top, I don't know what it's called, the thing that you turn. On the bottom also, they had a thing that you turn. So if it broke, go ahead, elongate it either this way or this way, and then make the knot on the other sides, but don't make a knot in the middle. That's the shita of Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. El mishal shemamata v'koyach mamayla, or mishal shemamata lower mamayla v'koyach mamata. V'ibay yisema hava harabanan. Another teretz. Hava rabbanan machshiri mitzvah that you couldn't have done before Yom Izdocha. Now, our Mishnah that says that what koishra, v'lekasha kan be'emtza. Our Mishnah speaking where it's in the middle. If it breaks in the middle, then you need a stronger knot. So go ahead, go knot it. And the brisa that says that you could get away with an aniva if it's broken at the top, where you don't need such a strong. No, it's both going to the chamin. And really, if it's before Shabbos, you wouldn't be able to do it before Shabbos, because machshiri mitzvah that you could have done before Shabbos is not like a Shabbos. But since it broke on Shabbos, the machshiri mitzvah, in this case, the machshiri mitzvah is to have the instrument to play for the mitzvah of the shir that accompanies the carbon. In this scenario, our Mishnah says make a knot. Why? Because it broke in the middle. In the middle, you need something strong. And the Chacham and the brisa that says go ahead and make an aniva, that's also according to the Chachamim. And also because it broke on Shabbos. Why do we have an aniva? Because the location of the break was in a place where you could have gotten away with the lesser of two evils, which is what? An aniva, a slip knot rather than a knot. Viva Yesema, the Mishnah is according to Shimon and the Chachamim, Havha be'emtza, and it ripped in the middle. It ripped in the middle. Now, what are we worried about? Masa b'gazrinon. With geyser, if we let you go ahead and tie in the middle, you may have to go ahead and make a knot l'chatchila, right? Masa b'gazrinon. So therefore, our Mishnah that says that what make it's not geyser, and the brisa is geyser, therefore you only can make a slip knot. Says the Mishnah, we're dealing here with a carbon. A carbon has a what? It has a mum. If it has a mum, then you can't bring it. But let's say it's a mum that's removable. Let's say it's a wart, and you could remove it. This is now pashtus. If you cut off a wart with a knife, that's called gozes. It's the same thing if you take a nail clipper and cut your fingers on Shabbos, your fingernails on Shabbos. That would be gozes. Or you can go ahead and use a shino. You can bite it off with your teeth, or rip it off with your finger. So that's the discussion we're going to have over here. Says the Mishnah, Chotkin yabeles b'migdash. You can go ahead and cut a yabeles, a wart, off in the Beis HaMikdash. Avaloy b'Medina, but you can't do it in the Medina, right? The imbekli, and if you're going to use a kli, kan v'kan aser, it would be aser in both places. Says Rashi, the first wide line, Chotkin yabeles biyad ka'amar. You can go ahead and cut it off with your hand. In bekli kan bekan aser, v'afagav the chi of nami biyad. Mitakin who, even though it's you mitakin the animal, even with your hand. V'havilei choytich mi balechayim. Rabbi told the goyzes. So Fred Rashi, what's the difference between a kli and your hand? At the end of the day, you're going to go ahead and accomplish the same thing. You're going ahead and making this animal roy to be a carbon. It's like going ahead and separating truma from tevel. You're going ahead and making this tevel able to be eaten, right? So over here also, as a result of you removing the wart, you allowing this animal to be brought as a carbon. So my nafkamina if you use a kli or if you use your hand, and at the end of the day, it's the same goal. You're accomplishing the same means. So the Rashi answers, afilu hachi kivin the kilachiyad kavin. Since you're doing kilachiyad, you're doing it with what? With shina, using your hand. Because normally you cut off a wart with a knife. So Rashi is mechadish that despite the fact that you're accomplishing the same thing, the action of how you accomplish it is a nafkamina in halacha. If you use a kli, it will be mamish like going ahead, taking a scissors, a shears, and cutting off the wool of a sheep, which is what? This is the rice of gozes. Or a human being taking a nail cutter and cutting with your fingernails, as opposed to what? Biting with your teeth, or taking your finger and pulling it off, which is again a nafkamina in halacha. So too over here as well, if you use your hand to take off a wart, despite the fact that you're being machshir the animal, still it is a shinui and therefore it'll be a shvus. We say ain't shvus b'mikdash. Mashenkein kli, which is a isser, daraisa, and av, we'll say in the Beis Hamikdash as well, you cannot go ahead and do it. Kan v'kanas. U'reminu ales yustira. Here kivu ve'evesa mechutzetchum. You're able to put a carbon, a sheep or a goat that you're bringing as a carbon pesach. It's very tired, it can't walk. On Shabbos, you're able to go ahead, put it on your shoulders and walk with it. Why? Chai nosei asatzmo, something that's alive carries itself. So you won't be over on Haitzah, you won't be carrying anything. And you can even bring in chusatchun. Chatichas yabaltoi, and you can go ahead, the cutting off the yabeltoi ain't doicha. And over here it says cutting off the wart is not doicha Shabbos, which is a stira to our Mishnah. It says it is. So we have a stira. The Mishnah here in Eruvin says you could cut off a wart. The Brisa here in Pesachim says you can't. Rabbi Eliezer says in fact why it would be doicha. Machshir mitzvah would be doicha. So now we have a stira. There are going to be 4 terutzim to this stira, and let's see a little chart that I made that'll help us out. Here we go. You have over here, you have an Eruvin that says you could cut the wart. And over here, let me go down a little bit. Eruvin said you could cut the wart, and Pesachim says no, cut the wart. So we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4 terutzim. Let's go through them. Let's go for the first 2, and then we'll go to the last 2. The first 2. Eruvin is speaking biyad. It's speaking about a moist wart, which is not crumbling. And therefore, you can go ahead, what? Use your hand. Why? Because it's a shinoi, as we said. So a moist yad, in Eruvin, you can cut the wart. Conversely, a moist with a kli, you got tarti l'reisa. 1, it's moist. 2, it's bekli. Therefore, you can't cut it. That would be an easy way to go ahead and explain the 2. Second possible teretz, it's speaking about you're using your hand. You're not using a kli. You're speaking about your hand. You're not using a kli. Why could you cut it off over here? Because it's dry. Since it's dry, it's considered like almost off already. Use your hand, which is a shinoi. Go ahead and it's dry. Take it off. You can do it. Conversely, if it's moist, you cannot do it. So this shita holds lach biyad lach bekli lach. This shita holds biyad yavesh biyad lach. And we're going to go ahead and see the Gemara on these 2 shitas. Let's get it clear. Here in Eruvin is speaking belach biyad. And Pesachim is speaking bekli belach, lach bekli. And according to the second teretz, it's all speaking biyad. And the question is whether what kind of wart is it? So let's see how this fares later in the Gemara. Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Yossi ben Chanina Chad Amar Haba Habalacha. It's both the first teretz, the first column. They're both moist. V'loi kasha kan here in Eruvin, it's speaking biyad. They're permitted because it's a shinoi. Kan in Pesachim bekli, and therefore it's also. The Chadam, and the other one says, Habiyad. We're not speaking about a kli at all. We're speaking about you using your hand. And the nafkamina is what? Is as the consistency of the wort. Like kasha, habalacha. In Pesachim, it's speaking where it's lach. And therefore, even biyad, you can't do it. And habiyaveshta. And here speaking of yaveshta, a dry one, and therefore you could do it. Good. Now, the Gemara is going to go through each one and say why each one doesn't hold like the other. I'm going to use the screen to illustrate as we go along. Says the Gemara. Now, Ulman Yama habiyad habikli. Ulman Yama says biyad bikli, right? This man Yama over here. Good. My time Yama habalacha habiyavesha. Why did number one not like my number two? Amalach yavesha afil bikli nami shari. Yeah. It's mashma over here, fellas. What's the whole reason this is not mutter? Take a look. It says biyad and dry. Mashma b'kli and dry, it wouldn't be good. Mashma b'kli and dry, it would not be good. Why not? Since it's dry, it's considered off the animal already. So I feel b'kli, it should not be considered goizes. I feel b'kli, it should not be considered goizes. So therefore, he disagreed with this approach, and he stayed with his approach. My timer, ifruche ifrecha, it's dry. The second fellow, why did he not like the first guy? My time, why did he not say the first teretz? It says, well, Malach, we tell you, Bikli hatanan. It says kli over here, right? And Bikli kan v'kan aser. It says in the Mishnah of Eruvin, it's aser. So this, guys, look, the illustrator over here, the word kli over here would be totally extraneous. I know from Eruvin dafka biyad, but in Eruvin it says what? Bikli, it's aser. Saiv, it's in the Migdash. Saiv, it's in the Medina. So the reason I don't like this teretz is you're telling me something in Pesachim that I know from Eruvin. Therefore, it must be speaking at the whole different Metzias. It must be speaking not about a kli at all. It must be speaking about biyad and the differences between yavesh and lach. So he doesn't like this because of yavesh, and he doesn't like this because of kli. Those are the two drachim over here. Okay, very good. Says the Gemara regarding that. Okay, now the idach, this person who said b'kli, the first one. The reason why we're learning Pesachim is from the Iflugi Rebbe Eliezer Rabbanan. Guys, what we hear in our Mishnah, take a look back at our Mishnah. It says, "V'im b'kli kan v'kan aser." We don't hear any machlokus. Look at the next line of the Gemara. There you go. We don't hear a sheet of Rebbe Eliezer in our Mishnah. So the Mishnah in Pesachim does bring something to the table that we don't hear from Eruvin. You say the kasha, what's the kasha over here? B'kli. It says in Eruvin. It doesn't say the machlokes between Rebbe Eliezer and the Chachamim in Eruvin. Therefore, I said tonight in this case biyad b'kli, and the chiddush is that you hear the machlokes in Rosh Rabbanan. V'idach, and the other one who says it's speaking lach biyad, speaking this over here. So why didn't he go ahead and say it's speaking over here? Right, the idach, the one who said it's speaking right, it's speaking both yad and lach. Like this one, right? Yad and lach. It's speaking yad and lach. Right? Why do you say it's speaking b'kli? As you hear? Look at this case, Pesachim. It says kli over here, right? It says kli. What's the case in Pesachim? You're coming from outside the tchum, or you're riding it on your shoulders. Now, outside the tchum, fellas, is a din d'Rabbanan. Carrying on your shoulders is a din d'Rabbanan. Chaynos es atzma. So if this Mishnah Pesachim, which took those two cases and gave us the third case of cutting off the wart, is speaking b'kli, it's not consistent with the other two, because the other two are clearly the Rabbanan, rabbinical in nature, and this one is the Raisa because of kli. Therefore, it can't be speaking in this Metzias. It must be speaking both biyad and lach. Biyad belach. Once you introduce biyad, it's already a shinoi. It's already the Rabbanan. So you have a consistency here in the Mishnah Pesachim. Biyad, lach, similar to riding on the shoulders and coming from chutzatchum. V'idach dumidei kiva, back in the Gemara. V'idach dumidei kiva, v'avasem chutzatchum katani. The Rabbanan. V'idach, and the one who Taka says over here, it's speaking biyad, it's speaking lach and b'kli. Right? Hikivu deloi krev nasin. Hikivu is also the Raisa. Dama chaynos yasatzmai. Hevesim chutzatchum. Right? It's not like Reb Nassim says chaynos yatzatzmo, ella ein chaynos yatzatzmo. And how it is deraisa by tchumim. So he very good. He holds serve. He says kli is similar to the other two cases because the other two cases is speaking why it's an issa deraisa. So this is the first two terutzim how to explain the Gemara. Masav Rabbi Yosef on the opinion that what that the Mishnah Pesachim is speaking this case, guys, from here. Rabbi Yosef is asking on this kasha. He's saying it's speaking biyad ubekli. Masav Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Eliezer kal v'chomer that it should be mutter to take it off the kli. Uma shchita shehi mishum malacha doiches Shabbos. Shchita is an av malacha. Yeah, we know shchita is carbon pesach is doiches Shabbos. Elu shemishum shvus. Einay din sheyischos a Shabbos. So elu is only a shvus, right? Elu, which is only a shvus, shemishum shvus, kevasai, and carrying it, right? It's a shvus. Einay din sheyischos a Shabbos. Right? It can't be talking that you cut the abelis with a knife, because then it's also there. It's also would be deraisa. Look at the lashon of Rebbe Eliezer. Mashchita mishum malacha derechas Shabbos, taking off the wart, which is shvus, is the rabbanan. Now, if it's speaking bikli, it's also deraisa. It's speaking. There's Rebbe Eliezer, guys. Go back to the second line of the Gemara, fellas. Let's go back to the second line of the Gemara. Second line where it gets wide, right? Why does it say in the second line? What does it say in the second line where it gets wide? What does it say? It says, case number one, the Rabbanan. Case number two, the Rabbanan. The Rabbanan ain't doichin. What does Rebbe Eliezer say? Rebbe Eliezer oimer doichin. Why? Because it's a kal v'chomer. Umashchita that what? It's doicha. It's ain't din that what? Harkavasa chusetchum and cutting your bellis, which is the Rabbanan, should be doicha. Now, if you're telling me it's speaking b'kli, then cutting off the wart is not the Rabbanan. So we can infer from the retort of Rebbe Eliezer as to what he must have held by what? By this case. What Rabbi Yosef is asking on this case, guys, look, it's speaking lach and kli. Kli is clearly a deraisa. That's the normal way to cut off a wart. So now, this case of Pesachim has two other cases with it. One, cutting off a wart. Two, coming from outside the tchum, and three, carrying on your shoulders. So if you're telling me that this is a kli, it's not consistent with the other two. So therefore, it must be speaking, here it is, it must be speaking biyad and lach. Here's the third column, the third terrace. It must be speaking biyad lach. It must be speaking in this scenario. It must be speaking Eruvin, speaking in the Migdash. Since it's the Migdash and you're using your hand, it's a shvus. Pesachim is speaking in the Medina. Now in the Medina, you check at home for a wart, and then you bring it. There's no heter to be over a shvus in Medina, and therefore we didn't allow you to cut the wart off. Because even though it's a shvus to cut it off with your hand, that's only a shvus b'migdash. In the Medina, we don't allow you to do the shvus. That's the teretz of Rabbi Yosef. Let's see the kasha. Let's see the teretz. Master Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Eliezer, kal v'chomer. Umashchita shemishum malacha doiches Shabbos. Elu carrying it, coming outside the tchum and cutting off the wart. And if you're telling me it's speaking b'kli, how could it be what? How could it be speaking that it's the Rabbana? So El Amar Rabbi Yosef, hava biyad. It's both speaking biyad now, and so once it speaks biyad, automatically it's a shvus. Ushvus the migdash, migdash hatiroi. A shvus in the base of migdash for something that's kodesh bimated. Shvus the kodesh in the migdash in Medina. A shvus that would have been permitted in the migdash in the Medina le'atiru. And therefore, the Mishnah Pesachim that says you can't cut off the wart is speaking by Medina. You're telling me this rule of thumb that you're not going to go ahead and permit in the Migdash, in the Medina. Now we're going to tzushtel, guys, a sefer kodesh to karbanis. We're going to tzushtel a sefer kodesh to karbanis. Sefer ala skupa. If you're reading a sefer on a stoop in front of your house. And remember, the Svarim, like those days, were like Megillus. And they rolled out of his hands. You're able to go ahead and roll it back to you, and you're not worried that it's going to fall into Rosh Hashanah, and you'll come to carry it 4 Amos in Rosh Hashanah. Or no, when come to bring it from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah. I have a the Shvus the Migdash, the Medina, who? It's the Migdash in the Medina, right? Because again, this Shvus is that a gzeira. You may come to carry it from one to the other, and nonetheless it's Medina. And we're not going to maybe it's going to fall and you'll come to carry it from the Shusayach to Shusarabim. So again, Your teretz was prefaced upon the Medina. We won't let you check the animal to cut it because it's a shvus and a shvus b'migdash. In the Medina, we don't allow. Here you have a shvus b'migdash. You have the sefer in the Medina, which is a shvus that you may come to carry it. You shouldn't be able to roll it because you may come to go ahead if it falls and carry it from Rishus HaYachid to Rishus HaRabim, and you're not geyser. So you see, you by shvus b'medina, you matted, right? And for the Gemara, what's your raya? V'lav kim the beskufa karmelis. It's speaking not that the skufa was 10 by 4, but it's less than 10. It's less than 10 and 4. Why do we call that a karmelis? Right? And therefore it's a gezerah legezerah. Karmelis itself is a gezerah at Rishus HaYachid. We're going to be going to gezerah legezerah. Rishus HaRabim res l'fanecha. Even the gida biyadei, since he's holding on to it, I feel it's shvus nami leka. It's not even a shvus because he's holding on to it. Therefore, einachinami at this point in time we're holding. The teretz of Rabbi Yosef is a good teretz. The fact that what then a shvus b'migdash Medina we would not matter. Esivei, it says regarding cooking the korban pesach, b'shashlan it said pesach l'tanur im chashecha. As it gets dark, you can go ahead and lower the pesach into the oven. It has to be tzliesh. Ayva hacha the shvus b'migdash, right? Medina v'loy gazrinon. Again, what's the reason you can't cook? Because you may come to Shem Yichat Es Gecholim, V'loy Gazrin and Shem Yichat Begecholim. You're not going, so that maybe you may come to go ahead and stir the coals. Ishtik, Abaye kept quiet. Kiosla Kamei the Rabbi Yosef. When Abaye came from the Rabbi Yosef, Amalei Hachi Amalei Rav Safra Amalei. My time late to Shanley. Why don't you answer him Bnei Chabur's reason name? Why don't you answer him Bnei Chabur Azaras? And therefore, if they come to go ahead and stir up the coals, you remind them. Therefore, they permitted it. Abaye, why did he remain silent? Silent, we say Kahanas reason haim, Aminan, Bnei Chabur's reason haim, Loy Aminan. Avaya says Kahanas reason haim, and we don't say the Kahana will warn each other and to stop someone to do from Balacha, but Bnei Chabur won't. Okay, so therefore L'chayra, you have Avaya L'chayra has to be masking. L'chayra you have a raya from Korban Pesach that you could lower. It's a shvus, and we're not worried. Rava Amar, Rava gives the fourth teretz. Here's Rava's teretz. Rava says. It's our Mishnah is speaking like Rebbe Eliezer, who says Machshirei mitzvahs doichen Shabbos. Again, Rebbe Eliezer, the Mila holds that what? That in fact, if you go ahead and you can make a knife, you can carry a knife, you can start the coals, make chamin, all of this can occur Erev Shabbat, on Shabbos itself. And we say doichen es Shabbos v'kamadev shlishnim v'shaninan. As much changes as we can make. In other words, like Rebbe Eliezer, Machshirei mitzvah. Why can't you use a kli? Why do we use a cut the wart with a hand? Why biyad, not a kli? Because it's true that you can cut the wart off, but as much changes as you make that you make. So since I can go ahead and take the wart off using a hand instead of a knife, you do it. And Sachim, they disagree with. They don't agree with Rebbe Eliezer. They don't let you go ahead and cut the wart off. And therefore, no cut wart. So 4 terutzim. First one, Eruvin, cut biyad the kli. Next teretz, Yavesha, dry lach. Third teretz, Migdash Shvus, Medina. Final teretz, Rebbe Eliezer, cut, wart, use your hand, because as much changes as we can make, we make, and they don't hold like Rebbe Eliezer, they don't let cut it at all. So Rav Amar Rebbe Eliezer, Amish is Rebbe Eliezer, he dam machshir mitzvah doichen Shabbos, u'moed Rebbe Eliezer, the kamod de'ef sh'shenuyim v'sheninan. As much changes as we can make, we make. Amid base. We're going to bring a riot to Rebbe Eliezer's din. Again, now we can take the chart off. We're going to bring a riot to Rebbe Eliezer's din. As much changes as we can make, we make. The Tanya. Koyin should also be a belis, right? A koyin. Now we're not speaking about an animal, we're speaking about a koyin. Also a balmum. Also a wart would be considered a mum. So what's a koyin do if he gets a wart? Right? Two shinuyim. One, he doesn't do it. And two, not his friend does it, but not with his hands, but with his teeth. Two shinuyim. B'shinav in, dafka with his teeth, yes, b'kli loy. Good. Chaveroi in ihuloi. Now, question: If this is this more mashma it's a shvus or more mashma it's a deraisa the money? Elam rabbanon who hold it's a shvus with a migdash kivin the am rabbanon ba'alma mishum shvus hacha mali hu mali chaveroi. Rabbanon hold that what that to cut off a wart to bite your nails is considered using not a kli is considered a shvus. Why did you have to resort to your friend? You could have done it yourself. Ella must be that's the deraisa problem, and therefore we want to go ahead and make 2 shinuyim as we're going to see. Ella Rebbe Eliezer, dama ba'al mechayev chatas. If you bite your nails, You chayav chatas. It's even with your biyad, even if you rip it off with your hands, you chayav chatas. So memela, in order to avoid that, it must be yos machshirei mitzvah, right? The hocha afagav machshirei mitzvah doichnes Shabbos, because we're allowing you to cut off the water in the first place. Nonetheless, kamod the efshel shaniyim mishanina. As much changes as we can make. So it's deraisa. If you do it beyond yourself, you have a heter. But try to go ahead and make the biggest shinui possible. So I'll go 2 steps. 1, using teeth, and 2, not using you. That's the chayur raya. As much change as we can make, we make. Because if it's the chachamim, why would you have to resort to your friend? And why would you have to resort to your teeth? You yourself could have taken it off because it's shvus. They ain't shvus b'migdash. So l'chayr we have a riot to Rabbi Eliezer, and the din that what Rabbi Eliezer says, as many changes as we can make, we make. After Gemara light, lo'ilam rabbanon, and it's taka only shvus. Why is it kasha? You yourself should take it off biyad. Be also b'kreisai if it's on his stomach, a place that's accessible to him. Hachanami, he could do it himself, and he wouldn't have to be samach on his friend. Hachamayaskin should also loy neshicha begaboy u'b'atzila yadav. It came on his back or on his elbow, which doesn't have access. So it's not a halacha. It's a practical reason why you have to use your friend. It's a practical reason. It's not a halachic reason. It's a shvus. And really, you should do it. Here is, you can't do it. Not because you can't, halachically you can't do it. Physically, you can't do it. You can't go ahead and get to a place to go ahead and take off the water. The iule matzi shakale. The Rabbanim frag Gemara. So now you tell me it's Rabbanon, so why do you have to use your teeth? You Rabbanon the shakli nela biyad. So go ahead, it's Rabbanon. Let your friend take it off, and let him take it off with his hand. That's one. Since it's a shvus, you don't have to have 2 steps removed. It says if a tirshit to Rebbe Lazar. In addition, we can place Rebbe Lazar shaila. Then Rebbe Lazar says the machlokes about taking off a wart from your own body is biyad. Al b'kli dirbi akol chayiv. But if it's B'kli, everyone would hold it chayiv. You have no raya. It could be what? B'kli, but the biyad also is chayiv if he's doing it. It says, right? It could, since he used his teeth, it could be that what? That biyad also would be chayiv. You have no raya. Well, the answer the reward. The Rebbe Eliezer, nami the shakin el biyad. Let Rebbe Eliezer, why are you using your hand? Why are you using your teeth to use your hand? Hi, Mike. Rebbe Eliezer. If it's Rabbi Eliezer, therefore, why it's the Raisa, and really the reason why you can do this machshiri mitzvah, and the reason why you're going to get 2 steps biyad or the teeth and chaveroi, and the gaza yada to kli. The reason why you can't use your yad because you may come to use the kli, and therefore use your teeth. If it didn't shvus, let him take over his hands because you're not going to be gaza at the kli because even the kli is only a shvus. So there's nothing else left to talk about. We have a clear raya brewer that according to Rabbi Eliezer, that machshiri mitzvah is doicha Shabbos, 1 din, and a second ancillary din is that when it's doicha, as many changes as you can make, go ahead and make. Okay, the next Mishnah is being a kohen has on his hand, he has a wound on his hand. He has a wound on his hand, and kohen shalaka betzboy, he has on his finger, not on his hand, on his finger. Let him go ahead and tie on his finger a gemi, which is a reed in the migdash. Medina. You can't do it. What? You can't do it in the mina. It says Rashi. Why can't you do it? Even though it cures it, and that's a problem of shchika samimonim, one of the gezeris that they made. Since to take it off, you need avoida to love urchar the tira makosim avoida, right? Since what? It's not going to be a chatzitza over here. Nobody's going to ask why it's not a chatzitza, but it seems to be that according to do the avoida, we want to cover it up. Avaloi b'Medina, shemarape b'Shabbos, refu b'Shabbos, shvusi v'aser. It's a shvus and it's aser, right? The hoysel says the Gemara, avaloi b'Medina, the hoysel the reason the gemi was put on to go ahead and he might see blood, that would kind of aser, that would be told of chayvel, and that would be the deraisa and be aser even in the Beis Hamikdash. I'm going to read the breder of chatfiyah. That we allowed you to cover up a wound on your finger, ela begemi. That would be using this reed-like substance. Avol tzilsel cotton, a little tzilsel, a little band-aid, a little belt. Havayit begodim. A kohen does avoid the 4 begodim. He has the mechlesayim, he has the avneit, he has the tunic, the shirt, the ksoinus, and he has a hat. Right? He has the mikbas. He has a hat. So you're going to give a 4th. You're going to put this. So it has a din of a kli. So it'll have 5 kalim. that'll be called Yita Begodim, that's an Isser. You only can 4 Begodim, not 5. So therefore, a Gemi which doesn't have a Shein Kli on it, you could use. Masha'en came silsil cotton, which has the din of a Kli, you would not be able to use. Because why? It would be considered adding on a beged. That's the Shita of Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Rabbi Chia. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Lo Yamu Yita Begodim El B'Makom Begodim. You don't wear a beged on your finger, you wear it on your body. So if you wear something extra on your body, then you have a Yita Begodim problem. But if you go ahead and wear it on your finger, then not. It's not a problem. In other words, not only gemi, but afilu what silsel cotton you would be able to use. Aval shleim makom begodim loy have a Yita Begodim. Furthermore, and maybe the reason you can't use silsel cotton is because it's in the avodah. Says Rabbi Ismail, maybe the wound is on your left hand. I mean, the avodah cannot be performed with the left hand. Inami biyamin, it's on your right hand. Shleim makom avodah, which won't get. It's on the place of the avodah. Now, Upligi Rava and Rav Chia's din, which says this distinction that you can't use it silsul gadol, argues on Rava. Dama Rava, Rav Chisda, the makom begadim, afil nima achas chaytzetzes. In the place of a beged, even if you have one thread, it's going to go ahead and be a chatzitza. Shalei b'makom begadim. Then, if it's shalosh al shalosh chaytzetzes, if it's shalei b'makom begadim, it has a din of shalosh al shalosh. That's its boys. Shalosh lashon. My rule, remember, shalosh lashon zacha. So even shalosh hasholetz bois, which is the minimal share of an ani to cover a patch, to cover something, so that's a shen kli, then it would be asa. Pachish b'shalosh sholes, like a silsel cotton, ain't a chaytzetzes. It would not be a chatzitza. So therefore, Rabbi Chia says a yita that silsel cotton would be a problem, according to Rava, clearly he would argue on Rava. Says Rabbi Yochanan about their plea. Rabbi Yochanan who said that what? Rabbi Yochanan who said that afilu less shleim makom begodim is not a problem. So over here also, mashma, even if you have a beged shleim makom begodim, if you have a 3x3 it's boy shleim makom begodim, according to Rabbi Yochanan, it's still not a problem. Like Rava, there is a problem. So they argue on Rabbi Yochanan. Ad Rabbi Yehuda, the brother of Chia, who said silsel cotton is a problem, right? So lest they argue because silsel cotton is smaller than 3x3. Name a pligi. No, shiny silsel cotton the chashiv. Maybe it'd be maida. I feel even though it's less than 3, since it's silsel cotton is chashiv, they would agree with each other. So you're not locked into saying it's a machlekes. Lishnachrina a little differently. Amalei lishnachrina amalei. Amrav Yehuda breder of Chia. Leishanu ele gemi. Ben gemi. Now the question now is yita begadim. In the shini lashon, the problem is going to be chatzitza. The same dialogue. Just go ahead and switch the word yita begadim, put in the word chatzitza. So therefore, lo shanu that you can use a gemi, right? Because it's not a chatzitza. Aval silsel cotton chaytzetz. Then it'll be chatzitza. We don't say chatzitza on something that's less than what? Then 3x3 it's boys. So therefore, again, it's silsel cotton would not be a problem. Ela b'makom begadim. Aval shlei b'makom begadim. Sholish al sholish chetzetzes pachas b'sholish in chetzetzes, and therefore what? I feel it's silsel cotton would be okay. Behind the Rava, and that's Rava's din. That it has to be 3x3, but less than 3x3 would be good. So Rabbi Yochanan would agree with Rava. I'm Rav Chisda lema pligid Rabbi Yehuda breder Chia. So let's say Rabbi Yehuda Chia argues on Rava because he says what silsel cotton would be good, and he says 3 by would be a problem, and according to him only 3x3 would be a chatzitza. Shiny silsel cotton the chashiv. Ken zayin it's a problem chatzitza because it's chashiv. Well, Rabbi Yochanan adishmin and gami lashmin and silsel cotton. Like Rabbi Yochanan that silsel cotton would be good because why? Because it's shleiba makom begadim. Why do you just limit it to a gemi? Why don't you tell me a bigger share that even something that's a kli like silsel cotton would still be okay? It would not be a chatzitza. And now we have a zayt chiddush. Milsav agavurcha kamashmalan. The gemi masi. We're hearing a slight point that a gemi has a medicinal quality. That when you put a gemi around your finger, it's going to cure your finger. But there's no chiddush in chatzitza more than silsel cotton. I wish you all a good Shabbos. Thank you all for your well wishes. And we'll see everyone tomorrow night, Bez Hashem, at 7 p.m. Bez Hashem, hopefully we will finish the Masechta, God willing. Thank you very much for listening. Great Shabbos to all.